Here. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to show up. As I said, I am in the area a lot, as this is my area for doing family hospice. I cover the area from Desert Hot Springs all the way out to Wonder Valley, 29, Pioneer, and everything in between. So I go by this facility frequently, and I've never been in. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for allowing me to be here. I feel very welcome. This morning as I drove up in the parking lot, in the moment that I drove up, there was another couple that was arriving, and they welcomed me here. It was very nice in that moment just to be welcomed. And then to see that there's a number of individuals here that I know personally over the last couple of years, and so that's welcoming also. And then to meet the rest of you and be a part of this group, I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that Joe, that you did the humor this morning. I find that I kind of fail at humor sometimes, so I give up trying to do those jokes and getting caught up in that, so it saves me an embarrassment later on. The two books that I brought along with me, one, of course, is my own book, and it's a little bit about my experience that I have found in being a part of Science of Mind. I've been a part of this philosophy now for 30-some years, entered into that. I just celebrated 21 years as a licensed minister within Centers for Spiritual Living. So it's something that truly is sort of ingrained in my being and who I am. The second book, the 5 Gifts for an Abundant Life by Diane Harmony. Reverend Diane was a minister in San Diego, and she wrote this book, and it's primarily a book about prosperity in life. But she's a good friend of mine, and when she decided to retire on the big island of Hawaii, of which I'm so envious of, I took over the responsibility of the distribution and the taking care of her book and handling all of the publishing parts of that. And the 5 gifts, the gifts is an acronym for gratitude, intention, forgiveness, thankfulness, and surrender. So gratitude being the first gift is something that is dear to my heart. It's helped guide me through her book and through all of the experiences that come in that, into finding joy in my life. And I know that all of us have had an experience sometime in your life, I would imagine, in which joy does not seem to be the prominent feeling and expression that you're going through. But using gratitude as a tool, we can remember and we can rediscover and we can find that sense of joy in our life. One of the things that I do in the group the bereavement group that I have, is I encourage people to do a little bit of journaling, to every day write down a few things about gratitude, because as you do so, then it brings that sense of joy. And when I say little, because I'm not one that was really into journaling. I don't know how many of you have tried to journal, but sometimes it's really difficult. But there's this great little composition, and it's really easy to fill the page. So, go out and find one of these, and then just one page a day, at least 5 things that you're grateful for, and you will begin to see that your life will change into a greater sense of joy. So as I begin, I want to first kind of acknowledge that today that there's a couple of things that are special about today. The first being that this is the second anniversary that Juneteenth has become a national holiday. And I think it's important that we all recognize this, because we know in the philosophy of science of mind that we are all one. Even though we look different and we have different experiences and we come from a different background, different race, different culture, different upbringing, the truth of it is there's only one. And that we are all a part of that. And whatever anyone experiences, we all experience. So in honoring Juneteenth, we honor and recognize that there were a people who were enslaved by no choice of their own. And it wasn't even until a couple of years after in our own country that we opened up and did our best, we still have work to do, to not enslave people. And so Juneteenth is that recognition of when the announcement came to a group of people that they were no longer enslaved, that they could be free, that they could have the same privileges and rights that all of us are entitled to. And we know that that's not fully expressed yet, but there's still more to do. The second thing that we want to acknowledge and recognize today is that it's Father's Day. There is a listserv for ministers, and there's a reading about fathers that I think many of the ministers are going to be reading in their presentation at their centers wherever they are today. So I would like to share that with you. Today is for the fathers. It is for the grandfathers, the uncles, the brothers, the friends, and sons. For the most important man in anyone's life, the one who gave us life. Here's to you, the dads who play endless games of go fish with their kids and always let them win. And those who always played to win every time, thinking that their children would grow stronger through defeat. This is for the fathers who worked in fields and factories, taught in classrooms or sat in office cubicles 8 hours a day. Here's to those who performed life-saving surgery and those who drove their truck through long days and nights. Here's to those who loved every minute of their labor, and to those who only worked so their families could survive. To the sleepless dads who have waited in silent fear that their babies wouldn't make it through the night, or their teenagers survived their first time driving home. Those who lost children and those who found them in different ways. Here's to tears not shed and hugs not given for fear of appearing weak. Here's to dads who build with hammer and saw and those who wouldn't know how. The fathers who are afraid of spiders and yet can slay the great dragon of fear in his little ones. The fathers who tried and those who didn't. The fathers who gave us life and walked away. And those who stayed long past the life of their marriage to give something to their children. Here's to the fathers who loved their children's mother, and to those who no longer could. The fathers who hurt because their children have been kept from them, and those who are both father and mother. Stay-at-home dads and stay-away dads, the one we wanted but never knew. The helpless, hurting father, and the brave, strong one. And for all the ways of fatherhood, here's to you. Thank you, fathers. So the joy of gratitude, the mental embodiment of an idea or a true mental equivalent of something, is not so much the word we speak as it is something we feel in the heart. In Science of Mind, in this philosophy, we've been taught, we've been instructed, we've been brought along in this teaching by our founder, Ernest Holmes, And this idea that the word we speak is that creative part of our life experience. I believe that Ernest Holmes, if he was around today, he would be a TikTok influencer. He was an individual who was always looking for that something new. He was trying to grasp onto this thing called life. In fact, that's one of his books, the title of his book, This Thing Called Life. That we are here in this experience, if for no other reason than to be in the experience. And to be in it in such a way that we can find joy and gratitude and peace and love and harmony, but it doesn't come just in a easy, natural form. It oftentimes requires some effort, some work, something that we have to do. In times of grief and loss and hate and uncertainty, where do we find this joy? Discover the joy that is rightfully yours as you reveal an attitude of gratitude in all things. I believe in this. I so embody this idea that our attitude is what creates our life experience. That what you are thinking, and I call this thinking, the crowd noise that's going on in the back of our head. It's that rattle that's always happening there. The little voices that kind of come forth and say, oh, you can't do that, or you're not enough for that, or you're not strong enough to do that. You don't have enough education, or you don't have enough knowledge or enough wisdom. All of these little small voices that get in the way. That when we change our attitude, when we change our thinking, when we correct that monkey mind that's going on into an idea that we truly are here. Each and every one of us is a child of God. Each of us has been created out of that essence of the divine. And as we recognize that, and as we acknowledge that, then we have the opportunity to bring forth that into our experience, to influence what's going on around and about us. There are things that we can't change. I guarantee you that the sun is always going to rise in the east, and we can't change that. So if you live on the western slope of the mountain, you're not going to be seeing those sunrises, but you have the opportunity to really express and enjoy and appreciate the sunsets. So we find in our life what's available to us, where we are positioned, and then we make the best out of that, or we don't. It's simply a choice. The choice is, how do you want to bring forth your life? Real joy is discovered in the attitude of gratitude for all things. Yes, all things. There has to be a gratitude for everything that is going on in your life. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Because somewhere in that, we discover the truth of who we are. As you rise higher in the attitude level of gratitude, it's like rising higher in the attitude level of mountain climbing. I wonder how many here have had a serious mountain climb experience. I mean, like, Mount Everest, Kilimanjaro, or Machu Picchu.
Mount Baldy.
Mount Baldy, okay. Well, Everest and Kilimanjaro are about twice the height of Mount San Jacinto, which is just down the road here. And if you've been to Mount Jacinto, you can understand the sensations of altitude. There's a thinner air, there's the pressure, there's the lightheadedness, things that happen when you begin to climb. And the same is true when we change our altitude of consciousness. As we grow in consciousness, as we begin to open up into the greater possibilities of life, as we rise up into that level of understanding, there's that same sensation that starts to go on. We get a little dizzy, we get a little lightheaded, We can feel the pressure that is going on. And there's a sensation, there's a feeling that is happening within us. And it begins to change us physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually when we open up to this greater possibility of joy in our life. But the work and the effort that's required to reach an altitude of attitude often comes with struggle, challenge, pain, scrapes, and bruises. And anyone who has achieved a hard-sought goal, who has climbed to a summit, knows the feeling that surges in your body at that moment of success or completion. Even with exhaustion, muscle pain, and weakness, there's a feeling of exhilaration, of joy, and gratefulness to be alive. And I know this joy and this exhilaration and this gratitude in my 2 trips to Machu Picchu in a 4-day mountain climb. For Machu Picchu is just a little bit higher than San Jacinto. And like San Jacinto, you can reach the summit in a convenient mode via the tramway or by bus for Machu Picchu. But in everything, give thanks. An attitude of gratitude is most salutary and bespeaks the realization that we are now in heaven. I've been thrilled by the idea of adventures in my life. Growing up, reading the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, allowed me to discover a world in this small farm town in Iowa where I grew up, a world that was bigger than I could imagine. Later, it became the Chronicles of Narnia, The Hobbit, science fiction, Star Wars, and Star Trek. And then, of course, Harry Potter. They all give the imagination to go beyond just the written word and into the feeling of excitement and in danger, challenge, and triumph. And I'm so ever grateful and thankful for the momentary escape of my daily life into the unknown. So I signed up for a 4-day, 3-night hike to the mystical and magical site of Machu Picchu. And it's just the kind of escape that you need to get out of whatever grind and rat race you find yourself ruminating about in the darkness. My first moment of gratitude on my trip to Machu Picchu was for our guide. For the guide introduced us to this healing properties of chewing cocoa leaves. Now, if you've ever taken a trip into, elevation where the air gets thinner and the air pressure is stronger, and of course you're climbing up and down the valleys 8 hours a day, and your muscles that you didn't even realize that you had in your body begin to respond and to react. And the relief that was given by having this healing property of chewing on these leaves was absolutely joyful. And I am grateful for our guide. I'm also grateful for the porters that you have along on the trip. Machu Picchu is very restricted and limited. Only a certain number of people are allowed to visit there on a daily basis. And if you take one of these, other than, like I said, you can just take the bus up there. But if you take one of these extraordinary trips where you hike up over 4 days and 3 nights, then you must have porters that come along. And I'm so ever grateful for them. They carried the tents, they brought the food, they carried all of your supplies and everything that you needed. And they presented a wonderful experience all along the way. As you would take off, you would see these men and women with stacks of luggage on their back, taking off running before you. And we were like tromping along and basically carrying, a little backpack with a bottle of water and maybe, my phone or camera along the way. but they've been acclimated to this hike and they knew it and they understand it. And at lunchtime, you would arrive into this open clearing and they would have set up a canopy and tables and chairs, and they would have this wonderful lunch already prepared and laid out for you. And I can tell you that after hiking just that first 4 hours, you had an appetite where you were willing to eat anything. And they had just this wonderful, sumptuous food available to you. So I was grateful for them and for all that they were bringing forth. In fact, I was so grateful for that literally at the end of our trip, I gave them everything that I had. My sleeping bag, my jackets, my boots, anything that I could give to them that would help enhance and improve, their well-being and their life. I gave it to them out of that sense of gratitude. And there's such joy in that. There's such an exhilaration in knowing that you can give back to someone who has done so much for you. How easy it is for us to be grateful for those who are always giving things to us, who are always cooperating with us, that are always in agreement with us. But to find gratitude when we're in situations where we're not in agreement, where we may feel a sense of conflict, that we may feel that sense of harmony, disharmony. If you can find gratitude in that, then you would truly have done the work that brings forth an altitude of consciousness that will change your life, that will allow you to be an influencer in your sphere of influence wherever you go. You will bring a smile. You will bring a sense of joy. You will radiate a feeling of goodness and well-being. And that is what's going to change the world. The greatest moment of gratitude and joy was that final morning of the trip. After we have climbed day after day, mile after mile, the altitude or the elevation change that we climbed was something like over 3,000 feet. And it's like most mountain ranges, it's not just climbing up, it's up and down and around and then back up and down again and then back up. But that final day, and they've arranged this so that it's a mystical, magical arrival into Machu Picchu. For they wake you up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you're on the side of this mountain range. And trust me, there's no electricity there. There are no street lights. There are no, house lights or anywhere that you're going to get some kind of a light. So they give you these little lights that you wear on your forehead, these headlamps, so that you can see where the trail is as you begin to walk along. And there's this final climb that you have to take. And there's a set of stairs carved out of the mountain. And each step is like 3 feet high. So you don't just walk up the steps. You literally have to climb each step in order to get to the next one. And there's about 20 of them going up this last rise in the mountain. And it's a challenge. And there are scrapes, there are bruises, there are challengings. And it's like, some awful hour of the morning. The sun hasn't even risen yet. And yet when you get to the top, you come forth into this experience where after the last step, there's a short walk around a bend, and right there laid out below you, because you're higher than the actual site of Machu Picchu. There it is, the grandness of Machu Picchu. And the sun is rising up over the morning. All of the aches and the pains, all of the struggle, all of the breathing and sweating and tears and agony that you've gone through the last 4 days is immediately washed away. There's a sense of gratitude. You are grateful for everything because you literally feel like you are standing on top of the world. And this beautiful ancient site is laid out before you in its majesty and all of its magic. And you spend the day there just wandering through all of this architecture that has been carved out of the mountain and built with the stone that is right there, and the levels in which they've laid out in order to grow the crops and everything that they've needed there. It's a beautiful, beautiful sight, and it makes you aware of your sense of where you are in life. So using that sense of gratitude, that attitude of gratitude, you can bring this joy, whatever the challenge may be, into your heart, into your feeling. As was mentioned earlier, out of the book by Roger Teal, This Life is Joy, he quotes Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist master, that suggests 4 points, 4 questionings for opening up your heart. And I just offer these to you to consider when you find yourself in a challenge, when you find yourself not feeling that sense of joy. Ask these questions of yourself and the perception that you have of others. Do I understand you enough? Do I really know you? Have I really taken the opportunity to see you as a human individual, as another child of the divine, as an expression of spirit right here in life? Do I water your seeds of suffering, or do I water your seeds of joy? And the final question, please tell me, how can I love you better? When I embrace my wounds and allow them to heal, I have no impulse to injure you. When I understand my desire to be lifted up, I refuse to tear you down. When I think rightly about myself, I need not make you wrong. And when my cry for love opens my heart door, I no longer close you out. And as our founder Ernest Holmes says, life goes on, but are we making the most of this thing called life? Thank you.